You said yes again. You didn't even pause. Someone asked, could you stay late? Could you wait a little longer? Could you just be okay with this? And before the question finished landing, you heard yourself say, yes, fine, of course, don't worry about it. And now you're sitting in your car or at your desk or in the bathroom for a minute just to be alone, and something quiet is running underneath everything. Not anger, not quite sadness. Something slower than that. Something that feels almost like forgetting, like you reached for a version of yourself and couldn't find her. You used to know what you wanted. You used to know when something wasn't right. But somewhere along the way, you stopped checking. You got so used to working with what you were given that you forgot you were allowed to ask for more. That's what this video is about. She doesn't make scenes. She doesn't ask for too much. She is, by every visible measure, easygoing. Low maintenance, flexible, grateful. But watch more carefully. She's the one who adjusts every time. She's the one who looks at the offer on the table, the half commitment, the almost enough, and decides that pointing it out would cost more than accepting it. So she folds herself smaller. She fills in the gaps with her own effort. She does the emotional labor of pretending the thing is fine, so that no one has to deal with the discomfort of knowing it isn't. She texts back warmly when she's hurting. She says no worries when there are. She lets the thing slide, and then the other thing. And then one day, she realizes she has been sliding so long that she can't remember where she started. She doesn't ask for things to be different because she's already run the calculation, what she wants versus what asking would cost. And somewhere inside that math, she keeps coming up short. Not because she isn't worth fighting for, but because she doesn't fully believe in that moment that she is. She says she's fine with less because she's told herself a story about it. This is enough. I'm not someone who needs a lot. Other people have it worse. I shouldn't expect so much. And she half believes it. That's the part that costs her the most, not the accepting less, but the way she talks herself into thinking she doesn't deserve more. She'll defend the people who underdeliver for her. She'll explain their behavior with more tenderness than she extends to herself. If you've ever looked at your own life, your friendships, your relationships, your job, the way people treat your time, and felt this low, slow ache of recognition, drop a 1 in the comments. Here's the part that most people miss. This isn't low self-esteem. It's something more specific than that. And once you understand what's actually happening, it starts to make a different kind of sense. What you're living inside has a name. Psychologists call it self-silencing. And it is not a personality flaw. It is a learned pattern of behavior in which a person suppresses her own needs, desires, and sense of entitlement to equal treatment in order to maintain connection and avoid conflict. Dr. Dana Jack, a clinical psychologist who spent decades studying depression in women, identified self-silencing as one of the central mechanisms behind why women, high-functioning, intelligent, capable women, consistently report feeling invisible in their own lives. She found that women who self-silence aren't passive. They are highly active, constantly managing their own reactions so others won't be uncomfortable, managing their expectations so they won't be disappointed, managing the version of themselves they show the world so that version stays acceptable. What's happening in the brain matters here too. When you grow up or go through an experience where advocating for your needs led to rejection, conflict, or being labeled as too much, your nervous system learns something. It logs the information. Wanting things is dangerous. Asking for more is risky. The safest version of you is the version that doesn't need too much. This is not irrational. This is your threat detection system doing exactly what it was designed to do. The amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for processing danger, cannot distinguish between emotional rejection and physical threat. To your nervous system, being told you're too needy or being punished for having wants lands with the same weight as a real alarm, and so it adapts. It starts regulating you away from need before you can even consciously register that you have one. Over time, the suppression becomes so automatic that you stop noticing it. You don't experience yourself deciding to accept less. You experience yourself simply not wanting more. That's not weakness. That's an extraordinarily sophisticated neural adaptation. The problem is that it was built for a specific environment, one where needing things was, in fact, costly, and it never got the memo that the environment changed. So where did it start? Because this pattern doesn't come from nowhere. There was a first place, a first room, where you learned that less was safer. Think back, not to a dramatic moment necessarily. Sometimes the lesson arrived quietly, in the small accumulated texture of ordinary days. Maybe you grew up in a home where someone else's needs were always bigger than yours. A parent who struggled, or who was unpredictable, or who was simply absent in ways you couldn't name. And you learned early that bringing your own needs into that space didn't help. It just added weight to something that was already heavy. So you got light, you got manageable. You became the version of yourself that didn't ask for much. Or maybe it was something more subtle. Maybe every time you expressed a preference, it was gently overridden. Every time you pushed back, the temperature dropped. Every time you wanted something your own way, you got the message, not loudly but clearly, that the smooth version of you was the loved version of you. Maybe you watched a woman you love, your mother, your grandmother, accept things that weren't enough, and some part of you absorbed it as the blueprint. This is what women do. This is what love looks like. You take what you get and you're grateful. And you were a child. You were building your understanding of what you were allowed to take up in the world. You did not pick this pattern consciously. You learned it the way children learn everything, through repetition, through reward, through watching what kept you safe. And for a long time, it did keep you safe. Wanting less meant less disappointment. Asking for little meant less rejection. Fitting yourself into whatever was offered meant you could stay. That logic made sense. It protected you, and you need to know that. But here's the part I want to be honest with you about. The same pattern that protected you then is costing you now. Every time you accept something that isn't enough and tell yourself it's fine, you're reinforcing a belief that started in a room you no longer live in. Every time you shrink your wants to fit someone else's capacity, you're practicing the idea that what you need doesn't quite matter enough to say out loud. And the slow result of that practice, across years, across relationships, across hundreds of small moments of adjustment, is that you start to forget what you actually wanted in the first place. That's the cost, not dramatic, not all at once. Just the gradual erosion of your own sense of self, until one day you're sitting in a car wondering why you feel like you've lost something and you can't remember what it was. But here's what I want you to hold alongside that. The woman who learned to accept less did not do so because she didn't value herself. She did it because she was smart enough to read the room she was in and adaptive enough to survive it. The self-silencing was not failure. It was fluency. In a language she had to learn to stay connected, to stay safe, to stay loved in the specific conditions she was handed. That kind of adaptation takes intelligence. It takes sensitivity. It takes an extraordinary ability to read what other people need and shape yourself accordingly. She is not broken. She is highly skilled in ways that no one ever acknowledged as skills. And now the work is not to become someone who needs nothing. The work is to let her nervous system learn something new, that she is in a different room now, that the emergency that trained her is over, that she is allowed to take up space, not because she earned it, not because she was good enough, but because she was always allowed to. She forgot she deserved more because she was never really shown that she did. That's not who she is. That's what she learned. And what was learned can slowly be unlearned. Drop an 8 in the comments if this is the first time someone has put words to this for you. You deserve to be seen in this. Before you go, I want to ask you something. Think back to the first time you remember adjusting yourself, shrinking a want, swallowing a need, deciding that asking wasn't worth the risk. How old were you? What was the room? What happened when you tried to need something? And what did you learn from it? You don't have to explain it fully. Even just the age, even just one word. Leave it in the comments, because the more women name this, the less any of us have to carry it alone. If this stayed with you, our next video goes even deeper, into the psychology of women who stopped being soft and lost themselves doing it. Watch it next.